Hi guys, and welcome back. So in today's lesson, we want to look at this lady here, Mary, Queen of Scots. We want to try to understand why was she a problem for Queen Elizabeth I. We need to understand why she came to England in 1568, and try to understand why Mary being in England caused a problem for Elizabeth. Now, as always, please make sure you've got your worksheet in front of you from Google Classrooms to fill in as we go along. And that worksheet needs to be submitted by Sunday, the 7th of June at 5 p.m. Please make sure you press submit so we get that work. And if there's any questions or feedback, please contact me at gbrown@stopsleyhighschool.co.uk. So, who was Mary, Queen of Scots? Mary, Queen of Scots was a family member of Elizabeth's. Now, we've all got someone in our family who is a bit of a troublemaker. There's two in mind. They know who they are. But Mary, Queen of Scots, let's be clear here, she was Elizabeth's second cousin. She was not her sister. She's not Bloody Mary. She's dead. That's why Elizabeth is on the throne. Okay. Now, I know it's confusing because they've both got the same name. Mary is a very common name back then, as we're going to see. But let's be clear on that straight away. This is not the half-sister of Elizabeth. This is her second cousin. They are related. Basically, Henry VII, so Henry VIII's dad, was a grandparent to Elizabeth and a great-grandparent to Mary. So they are related. They are from the same family. You don't need to worry about that too much. Just be aware of the fact that they are related. They're cousins. So let's talk about Mary a little bit more. Mary's parents were King James V of Scotland and Mary of Guise, who came from a powerful, rich Catholic family in France. Now, James dies about 6 days after Mary was born, which means at the age of 6 days old, Mary was the Queen of Scotland. And that's quite an unusual thing to have two queens on the throne at the time, Mary and Elizabeth. One's the Queen of England, one's the Queen of Scotland. Being queen at the time was quite an uncommon thing. Let's just compare the two queens before we study them in today's lesson. So, Elizabeth was a Protestant, whereas Mary was a Catholic. Elizabeth was an enemy of France, whereas Mary was half French herself. And so therefore we can see here a clash between the two. Now, Mary, Queen of Scots, was sent away to France to be raised and to marry into the French royal family. So she doesn't rule over Scotland when she's young. She's just sent away. She's told, go and live in France. And her mother, Mary of Guise, would rule Scotland with the help of advisors, people who would help her. Now, Mary, Queen of Scots, married the French King Francis II. Here's a picture of them, a portrait that was painted on their wedding day. And so Scotland and France are close as a result. Scotland and France were close allies, another word for friends. And this alliance, this friendship, was known as the Old Alliance. Now, just pause the video here. Why do you think Scotland and France being allies might be a problem for Elizabeth? Have a think. Okay, so there's a few reasons why. First of all, if we look at the map, both Scotland and France are geographically close to England, and so they could attack without much warning at all. They've both got Catholic leaders, and as a result, they both want Protestant Elizabeth gone. They see Elizabeth, being a Protestant, as being a threat to their Catholic religion. They want her gone. Okay, so problems for Elizabeth. But things were going to get worse for Mary, Queen of Scots, in the year 1560. Why was that such a bad year? Well, first of all, we need to understand that there were some Protestants in Scotland who hated Mary of Guise being in charge because she was a Catholic. They hated how close Scotland was with Catholic France, and they didn't want to be controlled by France anymore. England also didn't like the idea that France was controlling Scotland. And so what happened was Protestant Scottish troops rebelled against Mary of Guise and the French troops in 1560. There was a lot of fighting in Scotland, and Elizabeth sent money and then she sent troops in secret to make sure that the Protestants won, so that the Protestants would defeat the Catholics in Scotland. And during this time, in this year, Mary of Guise died from illness as well. So Mary, Queen of Scots, lost her mother. Now, England and France held talks, and they both agreed to take their troops out of Scotland. They both said that Scotland would be independent, no country would control it, and it could be Protestant. And Mary, Queen of Scots, would give up her claim to the English throne. Now, how do you think Mary would feel about this? These are French people saying that they have agreed to this. This isn't Mary agreeing to this herself. And think about where Mary was at the time. Well, Mary was in France still. She hadn't agreed to this. And so she was shocked when people they've said you can't take the throne of England. She felt that she was allowed this still, that she should be the next Queen of England when Elizabeth died. And it gets worse for Mary, Queen of Scots in this year. So not only has she lost her mother, not only has she lost the throne of England, the chance to become the Queen when Elizabeth died, but also in December 1560, her husband died, King Francis. And this is all at the age of 18 for Mary, Queen of Scots. So let's recap. She's lost her mum this year. She's lost her claim to the English throne. Now she's lost her husband. And she had to return home to Scotland. There was nothing for her in France anymore. So she returns to Scotland and she is the Queen of Scotland. But despite this, the Protestant lords, the powerful people, controlled the government. They could make laws. And actually, you've got a clash here in Scotland then between these two different types of religion. You've got the Protestant lords and you've got Catholic Mary. And the two of them do not get on at all. There is tension there. And we're going to look at that tension in a minute. But first of all, let's have a look at task 1. All I'd like you to do for me, please, is pause the video here and can you write me just a short paragraph to explain why 1560 was such a bad year for Mary, Queen of Scots. Think about what she lost. Think about what happened to her in just 1 year. If you need to go back to video, the blue slides will help you here. Pause the video to complete the task and then press play to continue. Okay, so what happened next? Well, Mary wasn't going to take not being allowed the English throne lying down. She said she had a claim to the English throne when Elizabeth died. It should be her who was next in line. She was family to Elizabeth. She's basically the only family Elizabeth's got left. And she said it's not fair that someone else said I can't take the throne. And she wrote letters to Elizabeth asking for her to confirm that when she died, Mary would be the Queen of England. Mary would replace Elizabeth. But Elizabeth never does this. Why do you think Elizabeth never says, I will let you be the Queen of England when I die? Well, there's a few reasons. First of all, you've got to remember that there were still Catholics in England. And it's quite possible that they would try to kill Elizabeth if they knew a Catholic queen like Mary was next in line, who would restore the churches the way they wanted it. It would also upset the Protestants to know that a Catholic was next on the throne. They wouldn't like this. And actually, if we remember the religious settlement of bringing the two religions together, both Protestantism and Catholicism, actually, all of this work would be undone if Elizabeth said a Catholic was going to be on the throne next. Now, Mary married for a second time in 1565 to a person called Henry Stuart, or we're going to call him Lord Darnley. And they had a son, James, in 1566. But Mary quickly realises that Darnley had a fierce temper on him, and he had a drink problem, and he wasn't a nice person. And if you want an example of this, he kills a man called David Rizzio, who he suspected of being close to his wife, Mary, Queen of Scots, in front of Mary. He storms into the room where David and Mary are. David hides behind Mary's skirt, and Lord Darnley, pulls him out, stabs him 56 times in front of Mary, and then pushes him down the stairs dead. Clearly not a nice person. But actually, it becomes even more strange because Darnley is killed later in suspicious circumstances. The house where he was living in has blown up. There's an explosion. But what makes this more strange is the fact that Darnley is found outside of that building. And he's got strange marks around his neck that suggest that he had been strangled. So he wasn't killed in the explosion, like people wanted to believe that he had been, He was actually killed before. Now, who did this? The Protestant Scottish lord suspected a friend of Mary's called the Earl of Bothwell was responsible. And needless to say, killing a royal like Lord Darnley was a huge, huge crime. They had to find out who was responsible for this. And what makes matters worse is the fact Mary marries the Earl of Bothwell soon after. They marry in May 1667, and Darnley was killed in February 1667. So let's recap this. Mary has a husband she doesn't like. The husband is killed in suspicious circumstances, and the person who is believed to have killed the husband then marries Mary a few months after. Well, this to the Scots, this is evidence enough that Mary and Bothwell planned to kill Lord Darnley and then marry. And they send troops to capture Mary and to capture Bothwell and to bring them to justice. Now, Mary surrenders as long as Bothwell is allowed to leave. So Bothwell flees to Norway. But Mary is captured. And actually, killing a monarch, well, that is really the death penalty for that if she was found guilty. Now, Elizabeth steps in here. And Elizabeth says to the Scottish Protestants, "You've captured Mary, fine. You are not allowed to kill Mary. You do not have the right as normal people to kill a monarch." That's a king or a queen. Because the king or the queen has been picked by God to rule, and as a normal person, you cannot do that. Now, Elizabeth stepping in here, this might seem like an act of kindness for a family member who could have been killed. But was it? Why else do you think Elizabeth might have done this? Have a think. Well, here's the thing. Like we said, killing a monarch is the worst crime you can commit. And if Elizabeth allowed common people to kill a monarch, ordinary people, then the Catholics in England might go, oh, hang on a minute. The Protestants in Scotland killed a Catholic queen. So why don't we Catholics in England kill the Protestant queen, kill Elizabeth? It might give them ideas. So Elizabeth has to make it clear that under no circumstances can normal people kill a king or a queen. So Mary isn't killed, but she is forced to abdicate. She is forced to step down as queen. And they also say you cannot see your son again either. And the Scots basically have a plan to replace Mary with James, who was a baby obviously at this point. And the Scottish Protestants can basically raise him and control him and make sure he is a king, he is a leader that they like. Because remember, they don't like Catholic Mary at all. They would much rather Protestant James on the throne. As well as that, Mary, Queen of Scots, is also, well, not Queen of Scots anymore, I guess. Well, she is imprisoned in a castle at Loch Leven as well. Which is incredible. It's an incredible story of Mary, Queen of Scots so far, but it doesn't end there at all because she escapes a year later. Some Scottish rescue Mary. She's disguised herself as a servant girl. They break her out of the castle. And she gets a small army of loyal Scots to fight these Protestants and win back her throne. But she's defeated. She's no match for the Protestants. And now she's in trouble. She can't stay in Scotland. It's not safe for her. And so Mary fled to England, the only place she considers safe at this time, where she can get to in a short distance, and she asked her cousin Elizabeth for help. Because let's face it, Elizabeth had made sure that Mary wasn't killed before, and she sort of hinted in these letters that she'd look after Mary and their family. Elizabeth is Mary's last hope, so she flees to England and asks for help. Now, task 2. Have a look at this gap fill here on your worksheets and just pause the video here to complete this. If you need to go back to fill in any information, please do so. It's the slides that are yellow. And when you're done, press play to continue. Okay, but I'm going to give you the answers for this one now anyway. So you have a look. They're the answers you should have, so you can correct that worksheet yourself. Keep an eye on the spelling, especially for key words we've picked up in today's lesson, like Protestant and abdicate, for example. Okay, let's continue. Mary arriving in England asking for support is a huge problem for Elizabeth. Remember, Mary is a troublesome family member for Elizabeth, and she doesn't welcome her with open arms at all. Now, Elizabeth has got several options of what she could do with Mary, but none of these are good. Let's have a look at the 4 of them. So option 1, you could help Mary defeat these Protestants and regain her throne. Well, this is good because you help a family member, you help your cousin regain the throne. And you show that monarchs are powerful and they cannot be controlled by normal people. Let's face it, the Scottish Protestants had really been horrible to Mary at this point and had taken away her power. So why is this a bad option? Well, let's remember, you're a Protestant and so are the Protestant lords in Scotland. You've worked together to get rid of the French from Scotland. They are your allies, they are your friends, and you'd be now going against them as a result. And also, who's to say that if you help Mary take her throne back, give it 10 years or so, she might come to you with a Catholic army ready to take your crown as well. You don't know if she's going to betray you or not. She might say, oh, I'd never do that, but can you really trust family? Let's face it. Okay, so option 2, let's do the opposite. Let's hand Mary over to the Scottish lords. And I think we're probably fairly clear about what they would do now because locking her up didn't work. Why is this good? You help your allies again, the Scottish Protestants. You keep that friendship, that alliance going. And a threat to your throne is removed because they're probably going to kill Mary, Queen of Scots now. She can't be trusted to be locked up. Why is this bad? Well, as discussed, you encourage other normal people in England at the time to rise up and get rid of an unpopular monarch, an unpopular queen or an unpopular king. And you don't want people to get ideas like that. Please remember, England still had lots of Catholics in it. If they see what Elizabeth has done, they might be encouraged to rise up and kill Elizabeth. And also, let's face it, Mary is family. And she's not been found guilty of any crimes yet. She hasn't even had a trial at this point. So actually, she might well be innocent. Option 3. Why don't you just keep Mary in England? Don't send her back to Scotland. Just leave her free in England. Well, this is good because you do save your cousin from the Scots in a peaceful way. Why is this bad? Because Mary being in England, this increases the threat of Catholics in England saying, hang on a minute. She's a Catholic. She's from the Tudor family. She could be our new queen. And so what would they do? They would kill Elizabeth and say to Mary, be our queen, restore the Catholic faith. And actually, the Catholics would do this to save their religion. Okay, it's not a great option either. Option 4, our final option, allow Mary to go abroad. You say to Mary, look, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm not going to let the Scots stay. You can't stay here. I want you to go on a boat and just get out of here. Problem solved. Well, this is good because Mary is safe. She's not in your country anymore. The problem's gone. But, again, give it a bit of time. How long's the problem gone for? Mary would, of course, go to a Catholic country. She's got close ties to somewhere like France. She might raise an army up over a number of years. She'll remember that you didn't help her take the Scottish throne back. You didn't support her. You didn't let her be heir to the throne. And so what's to stop her from coming back with a Catholic army in the future to come for you, to take your throne away? Once Mary, Queen of Scots, leaves, you can't guarantee that she won't come back for you. So, really, really tricky here for Elizabeth. 4 options. None of them are brilliant, are they? But I'm interested, guys, what would you have done if you were Elizabeth? Which of those options would you have taken? How would you have dealt with the problem of Mary? So task 3 today is, can you explain which of the 4 options you've picked as the best, why you've selected that option, and why didn't you go for the other 3 options available to you? Pause the video here to complete task 3 on your worksheet in a paragraph. If you need any help, the green slide will give you information that you need. When you're done, press play to end this lesson. So, before we end the lesson, what did actually happen? Elizabeth could not make her mind up. Mary kept writing letters to her saying, please let's meet up, please let's talk about this, I'll tell you why I'm innocent. But Elizabeth said, well, I don't really want to talk to you. I don't think it's appropriate for the Queen of England to meet up with someone accused of murder. They did a trial for Mary, where Mary wasn't present, but if they found Mary guilty, that would mean that Mary would have to be killed. Whereas if they found Mary not guilty, that would mean that Mary would be allowed to be free. Elizabeth didn't want either verdict. And so the trial didn't have a conclusion, the trial didn't end. So no one ever said whether Mary, Queen of Scots, was guilty of the murder of her husband, Lord Darnley, or not. So what did happen was Mary was kept in comfort, but she was kept under guards until a decision was made about what to do with her. And as a result, this would take 19 years. 19 years of Mary being moved around from different castles to different castles. You can see them there on the map, the areas that she was kept. And 19 years is a long time to be kept in England, and that was plenty of time for the Catholics to try to remove Elizabeth and get Mary on the throne. Over our next few lessons, we're going to look at the Catholics realising that if they kill Elizabeth, they can break Mary out of jail and they can restore the Catholic faith. By keeping Mary in England, Elizabeth is really, really putting herself at risk. We'll look at that in the next few lessons. But that's it for today. Thank you so much as always, guys. Please make sure that worksheet is submitted Sunday the 7th of June. Make sure you press submit, bring it in by 5 p.m. and we'll get it marked for you as always. Any questions or feedback, feel free to contact me at gbrown@stopseyhighschool.co.uk. And please, as always, make sure you get an exercise, make sure you're getting some fresh air during these strange times. Take care, and I will see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.